You thought he didn't care, that he was cold, disconnected, unaffected by the separation. But what if I told you he was breaking the entire time? He didn't show it. He couldn't. Because the divine masculine was never taught how to feel. He was trained to hide, to protect, to pretend everything was fine. But on the twin flame journey, pretending becomes impossible. Because the soul doesn't lie. And when the connection activates, so does everything he spent his whole life avoiding. You rise in intuition. He collapses in confusion. You cry and release. He resists and crumbles in silence. And the truth is, the journey is always harder for him, not because he doesn't feel love, but because he doesn't know how to feel it and survive. Because love, to him, feels like losing control. And control was the only thing that ever kept him safe. So while you wait for a message, he's waiting for the strength to face the mirror. He feels you. He dreams of you. He aches for you, but he carries it all alone. Because no one ever told him that awakening would feel like dying. But now, he's waking up anyway. And everything is starting to shake. What you thought was coldness was pain. You thought he didn't feel it. You thought he walked away easily. You thought his silence was indifference. But the truth is, it was pain. Because what you saw as emotional distance was him barely holding himself together. The divine masculine is not numb. He's not unbothered. He's not disconnected from you. He's disconnected from himself. And that's the root of everything. Because when the twin flame bond activates, the feminine rises in remembrance, but the masculine shatters in confusion. You feel it as a pull toward love. He feels it as a loss of identity, because love, to him, was never safe. Connection was never stable. Softness was never allowed. So when you entered his life, not just as a person, but as a mirror, he didn't see a partner. He saw a threat, not because of anything you did, but because your presence touched the parts of him he's buried since childhood, the places where emotion meant punishment, where vulnerability meant failure, where needing someone meant weakness. And in that programming, love feels like danger. So when his heart starts opening, his body goes into lockdown. He pulls away, not because he doesn't want you, but because he doesn't know how to survive having you. Can you feel the difference? Can you feel the truth under the confusion? He doesn't reject you because he doesn't care. He rejects the parts of himself that don't feel worthy of receiving you. That's why he goes quiet. That's why he disappears, just when things get real. That's why he acts like nothing ever happened, while you cry, shake, awaken. Because the feminine feels. She processes through emotion, expression, movement. But the masculine, he holds, he freezes, he shuts down, and it looks like coldness, but inside, it's chaos, a storm he doesn't know how to name. Because no one taught him that breaking is part of becoming. That falling apart doesn't mean he's failing. That being brought to his knees is not humiliation. It's the beginning of awakening. But before he can see that, he pushes you away. Because your love is too honest, your presence too piercing, your energy too real. And real is terrifying. Because real means he can't hide anymore, and hiding, for most of his life, was how he survived. So when you say, how can he not feel this? Understand, he does feel it. He just doesn't know how to hold it. His nervous system interprets the pull as threat. His ego interprets the bond as loss of control. And his trauma interprets your love as a door to pain. Not because your love is wrong, but because his memory of love is distorted. So when you showed up, open, radiant, intuitive, soft, he saw what he didn't know how to become. And instead of rising into that reflection, he ran, not away from you, but toward the version of himself that feels familiar, even if it's empty. Because the familiar is safer than the unknown. And your love? It was unknown. It was sacred. And sacred love doesn't just open the heart, it breaks the walls around it. It burns everything that's false. And that's why it hurts him more than he'll ever say. Because you didn't just bring love into his life. You brought a revolution. And no one prepares the masculine for that. No one tells him the divine feminine isn't here to comfort him into stagnation. She's here to awaken him into transformation. But awakening isn't clean. It's raw, it's loud, it's painful. So he numbs, he goes quiet, he disappears. And you, in your own hurt, think he doesn't feel. But he does. He just can't say it. He wasn't taught how. So he suffers in silence. And his silence becomes your suffering. But both are rooted in the same truth. He's not cold, he's wounded. And he's not ignoring the bond, he's overwhelmed by it. Because the masculine journey is not about being open. It's about learning how to open without collapsing. And right now, he's still learning. So what can you do? Not chase, not shrink, not wait for him to validate your experience. But anchor yourself in this knowing. His pain is real. His journey is hard. But it's not your job to carry him. It's your job to see him without losing yourself in the process. To feel his pain without becoming it. To honor his silence without making it mean you're unworthy. Because what you thought was coldness was a soul unraveling in slow motion. And soon, he'll either rise from it or keep running. But either way, your light has already done what it came to do. It showed him truth, and now he must choose it. The divine masculine doesn't cry in front of you. He doesn't fall apart where anyone can see. He breaks in private, in silence, in solitude, in self-blame. Because his awakening, the one you've prayed and waited for, doesn't look like light beaming through his chest. It looks like a collapse, a quiet one. The kind of collapse no one teaches him how to walk through. Because when the masculine awakens, it's not soft at first, it's brutal. Why? Because he spent his whole life building an identity that wasn't real. He was taught to be strong by never feeling, to be a man by never breaking, to be desirable by never needing. But then, the connection arrives. You arrive. And suddenly, everything he built begins to shake. Because love, true love, doesn't enter gently when there are walls. It shakes the foundation, and the masculine has more walls than even he realizes. That's why his awakening hurts more than it shows, because it's not just about meeting you, it's about meeting himself for the first time. And that's terrifying. Who is he without the mask? Who is he when he can't perform, charm, or control? Who is he when he feels everything he tried to bury? The answers don't come easily. They come through breakdown, sleepless nights, heavy chests, emotional paralysis. He doesn't text you about it. He doesn't ask for help. He doesn't even know how to name what he's feeling. because no one gave him the language. So he withdraws, he ghosts. He pretends nothing is wrong, while his soul is screaming inside. And the feminine sees it, doesn't she? She senses when his energy shifts. She feels the tremors in the field. She knows, even without contact, that something in him is stirring. But because he won't show it, she doubts it. And that's where the pain compounds. Because while she's feeling the energetic unraveling, he's fighting it with everything he has, not because he doesn't want the awakening, but because awakening for him means losing the only version of himself he's ever known. Can you imagine that? Feeling like your very identity is dissolving and having no one to guide you through it? That's what he's going through while you are rising into light. He is losing his armor in the dark. And that's the part most don't see. They think the masculine is behind. But the truth is, his path is heavier. Because the feminine, when she awakens, is encouraged. She's supported. There are spaces for her to feel. Sisters, communities, language, tools, but the masculine, he awakens into silence. No roadmap, no safety, no one asking how he's really doing. Just the pressure to keep going like nothing's happening. So he compartmentalizes. He gets quiet. He isolates. But beneath that silence is a war zone. His beliefs are crumbling. His relationships are being questioned. His soul is calling louder and louder, and he can't ignore it anymore. And yet, he doesn't know how to respond, because nothing in his world prepared him for this kind of love, this kind of mirror, this kind of remembrance. So when you wonder, why is he resisting? Why hasn't he reached out? Why is he running from something so real? It's not because he's blind to it, it's because he sees it too clearly. And it terrifies him. Because if it's real, then everything else in his life isn't. And that realization, it burns. So his awakening hurts. It hurts in the quiet. It hurts in his chest. It hurts when he sees your face in his dreams, but can't bring himself to speak in the waking world. Because deep down, he knows. You see him, not the mask, not the image, him. And being seen by someone who doesn't need him to perform, but simply to show up as he is. That's the most confronting experience of his life. So what can you do? Don't rescue him. Don't re-enter the loop to carry his pain, but see him. See the pain under the silence, the tremble under the strength, the awakening under the resistance. And hold your light steady. Because while you cannot walk this part for him, you can be the lighthouse he remembers when he's ready to come home. And if he never returns, then know that your love still did something holy. It cracked him open. And in that crack, he finally met himself. He doesn't have the words, not because he doesn't care, not because he's disconnected, but because what he's feeling, he's never had to explain before. The divine masculine feels deeply, so deeply that it scares him, so deeply that instead of speaking, he withdraws, so deeply that he would rather stay quiet than say something that doesn't fully capture what's moving inside him. Because how do you describe a connection that opens lifetimes? How do you put into words the way your body reacts when her energy enters the room, even when she's not physically there? How do you explain to the world that this woman you might not even talk to anymore still shows up in your dreams, in your heartbeat, in the pauses between distractions. The masculine feels it. He always has, but his programming never gave him permission to articulate it. He was taught to speak in logic, not vibration, to explain love as choice, not frequency, to define emotion by behavior, not energy. So when the twin flame connection activates, he's thrown into a realm he doesn't understand. You feel it in your womb. He feels it in his chest. You cry, he clenches. You surrender, he stiffens, but both of you are feeling the same thing. Only you have language for it. He doesn't. Not yet. Because his nervous system doesn't process the love like a wave. It processes it like a threat. Even if he doesn't know why. Even if he loves you. Even if you're everything he's ever wanted. The bond doesn't just trigger his heart. It exposes his wound. The fear of being a being, the fear of being needed, the fear of failing. So when you open your heart, when you share what you feel, when you reach for him with clarity and softness, he panics. Not because it's wrong, but because it's too right, too clear, too pure. And purity doesn't give him a script. Purity demands presence. And presence is something he's not yet trained to sustain, especially in love. So he short circuits, he detaches, he acts like it's nothing. But inside, he's overwhelmed. And the more he feels, the more confused he becomes. Have you seen it? The flicker in his eyes when you say something real? The tremble in his voice when you name what's happening between you? The way he changes the subject, makes a joke, turns away? That's not avoidance. That's self-protection. Because he's been taught that if he opens that door, he might not be able to close it again. And that terrifies him, because he's never known a love that asks nothing but truth. He's known performance, possession, control. But not this. Not a love that sees everything and still stays. Not a connection that strips him bare and then calls it divine. So he's left in a strange place, feeling something bigger than his body can hold, but with no words to name it. And instead of asking for help, instead of saying, "I don't understand what I'm feeling," instead of saying, "I miss you and I'm scared," he disappears. Not because you're too much, but because he's never had to sit with himself long enough to translate this kind of emotion. And it hurts him, not just to lose you, but to not be able to reach you in the way you deserve, to feel you and not know how to show it, to dream of you and not know how to return, to love you and not know how to own that love without fear. So instead, he carries it in silence. And that silence isn't absence, it's overflow. He feels the pull, he hears your soul. He senses the timelines colliding. But his mouth doesn't know how to say what his energy screams. And here's the paradox. The deeper he feels, the more silent he becomes. Because emotion, for him, is uncharted territory. And the words that come with it, they're buried under years of repression, shame, and unconscious conditioning. So if you're wondering, does he feel me? Does he care? Does he know what this is? The answer is yes, but not the way you might think. He feels it as pressure in his chest, as restlessness at night, as sudden waves of emotion that make no sense, as the memory of your voice when he needs clarity, as a strange familiarity when he looks at the sky and thinks of nothing but you. He feels it as something he can't name, but can't forget either. And that's where he is now. In the space between knowing and speaking, between feeling and expressing, between being moved and moving. So what can you do? Not wait, not force, not explain it to him again, but hold your knowing steady. Because your knowing gives his feeling a shape. Your embodiment gives his confusion a direction. And eventually, his silence won't be enough to contain it anymore. He'll speak. Not because you pulled it from him, but because your energy gave him permission to find the words himself. And when he does, they won't be perfect, but they'll be real. And real is all you've ever needed. Why his delay is actually a test. You called it a delay. You thought he wasn't ready. You wondered if he was blind, numb, or unwilling. But what if I told you his delay is not a denial? What if the space between you is not distance, but initiation? The divine masculine does not move by demand. He moves when the soul breaks his armor. And that breaking is sacred. It takes time, it takes pressure, it takes silence, space, and contradiction. So when he doesn't answer, it's not rejection, it's reflection. He's not ignoring you. He's being confronted by everything your light activated. And here's the deeper truth most don't want to face. His delay is a test, not of him, but of you. Of your patience, of your embodiment, of your willingness to stay rooted in your knowing, even when it looks like nothing is happening. Because energy always moves before form. And right now, the masculine is being tested at the level of identity. He's being asked to let go of what once made him feel safe, to walk away from comfort, control, validation, and status, to face the shame of past choices, to question every definition of masculinity he inherited, to trust an invisible force, your connection, more than his logic. And that kind of surrender isn't instant, it's terrifying. So his delay is not just hesitation, it's his soul standing at the edge of a cliff, being asked to jump without a net. Would you jump without knowing where you'd land? That's where he is now. And the divine doesn't allow shortcuts here. This is the space where ego dies, where illusions dissolve, where everything he thought he wanted begins to feel hollow. And yes, it takes time. But the delay isn't wasted, because every moment he doesn't reach out, every day he doesn't take the easy road, every breath he spends sitting in the discomfort of his truth, he is choosing to transform, not for you, but because the old version of himself can no longer survive the vibration you've activated. This is not punishment. This is purification, and it will test both of you. Because the feminine wants to move in love. She wants to heal. She wants to merge. But the universe is asking her, will you hold your frequency even when he can't yet meet it? Will you trust your inner knowing above the silence? Will you stay with yourself when the weight becomes heavy? Because if you rush to pull him forward, you interrupt the very alchemy that's creating the version of him you've always known was possible. And if you collapse in his absence, you betray the temple you were becoming. So the delay is not cruelty, it's calibration. He is not choosing others over you. He is being emptied. He is not silent because he doesn't care. He is speechless because he doesn't yet know how to speak from his soul. And that's what you require. He is not stagnant. He is standing at the center of a storm that you, divine feminine, triggered. Not to punish him, but to free him. And you're being tested too. Because it's easy to hold love when it's reflected. But can you hold it when it looks like silence? Can you walk in purpose without proof? Can you trust the unseen because union doesn't begin when he texts you? It begins when you stop needing him to and still know it's real. The delay was never about waiting. It was about anchoring. And here's what's happening while you anchor. He is being refined. He is being burned. He is being stripped of everything that isn't him. And yes, it's brutal, but it's holy. Because you didn't come here for the easy version of love. You came for the kind of love that transforms. And that kind of love must be earned energetically. So ask yourself, can I remain true even when the timeline stretches? Can I hold softness even while the mirror of the masculine is shattered? Can I release him, not to let go, but to let the fire complete its work? Because the test is almost over. You feel it. The dreams, the waves, the synchronicities, something is shifting. And when he reappears, if you've remained in your center, you won't need to ask if he's ready. You'll feel it, because he won't come back as the version who left. He'll come as the man who finally crossed his own fire. And only then can you truly meet. He tries to run. He tries to forget. He tries to build a new world where you don't exist, but he can't. Because you are not just a memory. You are his mirror. The divine feminine doesn't need to chase the masculine. Because once her light has touched his soul, nothing else feels real again. He may deny you with his words. He may reject you with silence. He may even choose another path, another person, another version of life that looks easier, safer, quieter. But inside, he still hears your voice in the moments when he's alone. He still feels your energy when he closes his eyes at night. He still flinches when something reminds him of what he could have had and wasn't yet ready to hold. Because the feminine is not just a person. She is a frequency. She is the vibration of truth that his illusions cannot withstand. And no matter how far he goes, how many distractions he uses, how many layers of logic he stacks to avoid you, he always comes back to the same place, her reflection. Not because she demands it, but because the truth she carries is etched into his design. She becomes the mirror of what he could be, of what he is, beneath the roles, the fears, the shadows, and that's the most terrifying thing for a man who has built his entire identity on control. Have you ever wondered, why does he seem to avoid you when you're most radiant? Why does he go silent when you stop chasing? Why does he fall into chaos just when you reach your center? It's because your alignment makes his false self tremble. Your wholeness shows him where he is fragmented. Your light unmasks the costume he thought he had to wear to be loved. And that's the moment he must choose to evolve or escape, to rise or run. But either way, he can no longer pretend he doesn't see, because the divine feminine is not subtle. She is a walking revelation, a mirror forged in spirit, not in ego. And even if he turns away, even if he tries to dull the impact of her reflection with anger, denial, or pride, the energy has already entered his system. And energy cannot be reversed. It can only be ignored until it burns through everything in its way. So when you think he forgot you, he didn't. When you believe he replaced you, he didn't. He is just trying to escape the mirror. Because it's not about you, it's about what you awaken. And once the masculine sees it, he can never unknow it. You become the echo in his choices, the ache in his chest when he settles for something less, the tension in his body when he hears your name, and his whole nervous system remembers what it felt like to be seen. And the most powerful part? You don't have to do anything for this to happen. Just keep anchoring. Just keep softening into truth. Just keep holding your frequency. Because the feminine doesn't chase, she reflects. She doesn't convince, she reveals. She doesn't push, she invites. And when the masculine finally grows tired of running from himself, he will return to the only space that ever made him feel whole. Your mirror. But this time, he won't come asking for comfort. He'll come seeking alignment. Because the pain of avoiding you has finally become louder than the fear of becoming himself. So don't dim. Don't distort your reflection to make it easier for him to face. Don't shrink your voice to keep him comfortable. Because what if your power is exactly what he needs to finally shatter the version of himself that couldn't love you? What if the discomfort he feels in your presence is the breaking of chains? What if your presence in full embodiment is the initiation he's been avoiding his whole life? You don't need to rescue him. You just need to be. Because once the mirror is clean, once you're standing fully in your light, he will have no more shadows to hide behind. And when he sees himself clearly, that's when his real journey begins. You keep hearing silence. You interpret it as distance, a rejection, as a choice he's making again and again to not come closer. But what if it's not absence? What if what you're feeling is not a void, but an overflow? The divine masculine isn't always silent because he doesn't care. He's silent because he can't process what's moving through him. Because when the feminine fully awakens, when she becomes embodied, magnetic, radiant, still, her presence doesn't whisper. It floods his system. Her energy doesn't just land like a soft memory. It hits like a frequency that penetrates every illusion he's ever lived in. And while she's been learning to open, he's been trained to shut down, to survive, not feel, to manage, not surrender, to perform, not reveal. So when she rises, he short circuits. He doesn't know how to stand still in front of a woman who sees through him. He doesn't know how to receive love without conditions. He doesn't know how to stay when staying means facing everything he's avoided. So his nervous system freezes, and that freeze is what you're calling silence. But silence in the masculine journey isn't nothingness. It's compression, it's overload, it's every memory, fear, regret, and longing piling up in his chest with nowhere to go. He's not trying to forget you. He's trying to breathe under the weight of what you've activated. Have you noticed? The more you surrender, the quieter he gets. The more you embody your radiance, the more lost he seems. Not because you're too much, but because you're exactly what he asked for before he knew what it would require. You are the answer to his soul's prayer, but his ego wasn't prepared for the cost. And now, he's in the middle of the collapse, where logic doesn't work, where plans fall apart, where no one around him understands the storm in his chest. Because how can he explain? How can he say, I met someone who makes me feel both found and terrified. I love her, but I don't know how to hold her. She sees me, and I don't know who I am without the masks. So he says nothing. He pretends. He retreats. But inside, he is drowning in truth. And the feminine, if she's not anchored in herself, takes it personally. She aches. She doubts. She questions her worth. But here's the truth she must hold. His silence says more than his words ever could. Because if he didn't feel, he'd speak casually. If you didn't matter, he'd be comfortable. But your energy disrupts him. It undoes his patterns. It confronts his armor. It invites him into a reality he never believed was possible or safe. And that's overwhelming. So instead of hearing nothing, try feeling deeper. What's beneath the silence? Have your dreams shifted? Do you feel his presence at night? Are your emotions not even your own sometimes? That's not your imagination. That's entanglement. That's the energetic field still pulsing, even when the physical goes quiet. Because the bond wasn't built in words, it was built in frequency. And frequency doesn't vanish. It pressurizes. Until the masculine finally makes a choice to keep running or to finally open. And when that moment comes, he won't return the same. He'll return humbled, exposed, changed. Because silence wasn't his escape. It was his initiation. And while it hurt, while it made you question everything, it was necessary. Because nothing sacred comes rushed. And no one arrives in wholeness without first walking through the fire. So if you're here, reading this, feeling the ache, sensing the quiet, know this: the silence is not the end. It's the threshold, and your job is not to break it, but to honor it, to let it complete its work. Because one day soon, the masculine will step through it. And when he does, you'll recognize the sound of his voice, not by the words, but by the truth it finally carries.